The city of Dallas is looking to hire a city manager. My question for you, who's it going to be? Who's going to lead the city of Dallas? 3 city manager candidates have withdrawn from the running. Council members are expected to interview semifinalists on December 23rd. I've read several stories in the last 24 hours or so, a couple from the Dallas Morning News, talking about the turmoil on the Dallas City Council, and it just sounds like there's something up there. I'd be curious to see what you think of it, what you know of it. I want to hear your opinion of it. We'll talk about that in about 6 minutes, 5.5, 6 minutes. I'm Jeff, Westside Jeff, in for Chris Krok. Chris is back on January 2nd, and I'll be filling in until then, as Chris is on vacation, I think, and maybe back in a little bit and filling in for Casey somewhere along the way. So we got the pull in the hook and bring in Jeff, Westside Jeff, at night. Trump proof. New term in government. Joe Biden is abandoning his efforts to provide some protections for transgender student athletes and canceled student loans for more than 38 million Americans. It's the first steps in an administration-wide plan to jettison pending regulations to prevent President-elect Donald Trump from retooling them to achieve his own aims. So quietly behind the scenes, Joe Biden has told his team, we got to get things done and passed now, codify them, because we want to Trump-proof the government. Now, the White House expects to pull back unfinished rules across several agencies if there isn't enough time to finalize them before Trump takes office. And then if the proposed regulations were left in the current state, the next administration, meaning Donald Trump, would be able to rewrite them and advance the agenda more quickly. Even as the Biden administration moves to pull back those rules, it has pushed ahead with cancellation through other avenues late today. The Education Department, so the Department of Education, said it was clearing loans for another 55,000 borrowers. And those are people who have reached the eligibility through a program known as Public Service Loan Forgiveness, which was created by Congress in 2007 and expanded by the Biden administration. Now, I've been up and down social media, and I see all kinds of people just complaining and just anger about Biden canceling loans. Now, let me give you some common sense opinion on that. Let me pull you back in and reel you back in on this. Couple things in that. Number one is he's not canceling the loans. He's putting it on you and I. We pay for it. But number two, as I read through it, and I've not had 3 days to study this and go through every document, but as I read through it, it doesn't look like it's anything major league significant, because what it is there was a Congress passed a law in 2007 that allowed the government to forgive debt, college debt, for those who choose public service and health care. Let me give you an example. Born and raised up in Ohio, west side of Columbus, Ohio, hence Westside Jeff. My oldest daughter, Danielle, wanted to be a physical therapist. So she went to college up near Knoxville, Tennessee. So it was right on the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Got a 4-year undergrad degree in bio something, I don't know, and ended up going to physical therapy school and got a doctorate of physical therapy at the University of Dayton up in Dayton, Ohio. So that was another 3 years. She had 7 years worth of college. Hell, I didn't have money to pay 7 years worth of college. We took loans out like most people do. She's got about $175,000 in debt right now. University of Dayton is a very expensive private college, a Catholic school, good educational system. She got her PT degree, graduated 2 years ago, went to work up at Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Now, as the law goes, as it says, if she works for 10 years for a hospital system like Children's Hospital, it's a nonprofit, If she works there for 10 years, her debt will be forgiven. I set her up with a financial planner and guys that I worked with for many years. I was and she's married now and just found out 3 weeks ago she's pregnant. First child, going to be a granddaddy. Boy, you never feel as old as you do when that was the first time in my life I started feeling old. That first time in life where I actually, it hit me, I'm old, is when I was told I'm going to be a grandfather. And so she works as a physical therapist at Children's Hospital up in Columbus, Ohio. She asked me to sit in with her call with her financial guy, who's my financial guy, the first time she did. And we had a conversation about this. And his recommendation, rightly so, was pay your minimum student loan payment, the minimum that you need to pay. You do it for 10 years. In 10 years, there'll be loan forgiveness because you've worked at Children's Hospital in a nonprofit. That's been going on all along. So all Biden did is verify and extend and validate those who have hit that criteria. That doesn't bother me. That shouldn't bother you. That's just the process that's been going on in this country since 2007. Old guy once said to me, he said, you know what? The law is the law. You follow the law. And if you don't like the law, then change it. Well, they set that in 2007. It's been good under Trump, the first administration. 2007, it was set when before Obama took office. And then Obama was in 8 years, and then Trump and Biden for 4. So it's lived through at least a portion of a Republican presidency in 2007. It lived through 8 years of Obama, 4 years of Trump, and 4 years of Biden. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think that's excessive. If you make a commitment to go to college, take out some loans, you make a commitment to work in public service, even including a nonprofit hospital system, then I'm okay with that process. That sits well with me. To me, it's common sense. That's all I do, give you a common sense opinion. But elsewhere across the government, Joe Biden's Trump-proofing his policies. One is within the world of transgenders, and the other is he actually wants to do more on forgiveness of college loans. Now, Caroline Leavitt, spokesman for Trump, has accused the White House of adding more red tape and making it more difficult for Trump to govern because Biden is Trump-proofing the White House. She said President Trump will not be deterred by their dirty tricks and will use every lever of power available and deal with that when Trump takes over. Biden is addressing the transgender issue. Late today, officials announced that they were erasing that debt for another 55,000 workers, those including teachers, nurses, law enforcement officials, through that public service loan forgiveness. And again, the program promises to cancel loans for borrowers who spent 10 years in government or nonprofit jobs. The $4.28 billion in relief is expected to be the final round of public service loan forgiveness before Biden leaves office in January. But he's also looking at setting in some processes to protect his transgender policy. Hopefully it doesn't get done. Hopefully it just doesn't screw up this country any more than he has. Hopefully we get by without any major catastrophes between now and January 20th and 21st. And if something happens, certainly we're going to hear from Donald Trump on that. Name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm filling in for Chris. Chris Krok is back January 2nd. Got to hit a break in a minute. On the other side of that, I told you I want to talk about who's going to lead the city of Dallas. There are 3 city manager candidates who withdrawn from the running. City council's a mess. Bickering there. So my question is, you got to ask the question. Anytime an organization has an opening that's a pretty significant, high-profile opening, and it pays okay, why is it several candidates that are up for the job would withdraw their name from that job? What would make people not want to take the job of city manager in Dallas? I want to talk about that next. I want to hear your perspective. Listeners have a lot of perspectives. I want to hear yours. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok. Got to hit a quick break. On the other side of that, we'll continue that conversation about why so many finalists are dropping out of the city manager role for the city of Dallas. I think it has to do with city council. I think it has to do with some infighting, some bickering. And I wonder if candidates say, I don't want a part of that. But many of you may know. I want to hear your perspective. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. We'll talk about it in 3.5 minutes. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. So I've been following the news of the Dallas City Council and what's going on in our city. And we know it's a bunch of Democrats, a bunch of liberals forcing their beliefs and policy. Here's what I know about openings and jobs and careers. In the private sector, I used to be an employer at a big radio company, not this company, a different one. And I used to have people, I love my job. I've always loved my job. I don't want to retire because I love doing what I'm doing. And it shows. It resonates. You could just tell someone's happy. I'm happy in what I did. Happy in what I did. And I used to have people, peers, and others I interact with in the industry around the state who would call me and say, hey, Jeff, you're a pretty smart guy. You do it all. I want you to give my kids some advice. I got somebody I want you to talk to and interview and so on and so on. And I'd always spent time for those up and comers because that was me at one time. I grew up in a household, not a white collar household. I grew up in a blue collar household. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a plumber. Hell, I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't have contacts. I didn't have somebody that could say, hey, mom or dad, pick up the phone and call this person and open a door for me. I'd do it myself. I didn't have that experience. I just didn't. So where I got to on my own, out of the get-go, with the love and support of my parents. So I have always felt strongly about helping those who may have come up out of a background similar to mine and giving them a shot, giving them a voice, giving them an opportunity. And when I talk to those folks, I'd regularly, they'd ask me, hey, what about interviewing? How do you do it? And how do you get the job? And how do the contacts? And a lot of them asked a lot of the wrong questions. But one of the things I used to impart on the younger folks coming up in younger generation coming up in our business, I used to always say to them, your job interviews aren't one-sided. It shouldn't just be you having them interview you to see if they want to hire you. You need to be interviewing them to see if you want to work for them. Because you have a choice. If you're going to go interview for a job, you have a choice to go to work for company A or company B. Don't you want to work for the right company? So one of the things I used to always tell them is you need to ask certain questions, not just to ask questions and look like you're smart or intelligent. You have to ask real, true questions that make sense, that give you clarity on and defines where you're going and what it's like. So one of the things I always ask people to interview when they interview to ask, the go-to ask question I would always ask is, tell me about the position that you have open. Is this a new position you're creating? And if so, why? Or is this a position you're backfilling? Are you hiring for somebody that left the position? And I want to open-ended question. I want to ask and say, why do you have this opening? And then I want to ask a little deeper and say, the person that left, if it's somebody who left the job, why'd they leave the job? What I'm looking for is somebody to tell me the guy that we're replacing worked here for 30 years and retired and whatever. That's great. But if you're going to tell me that I'm interviewing for a position within a company or an organization, that the person that held that job is a person that did it for 6 months, and they replaced somebody who did it for 9 months, and they replaced somebody who did it for 3 months, and they did it for somebody that's 6 months, and you've had 8 or 10 or 12 people over the last 4 or 5 years, then I got to ask you in the next question of why. Are you that bad of an employer? Is this that bad of a place to work? Is this that bad of a job? because you shouldn't have that massive turnover. That's what I see in the Dallas City Council going on right now. Who will lead the city of Dallas? You got 3 managerial candidates, 3 city manager candidates withdraw from the running. And it begs the question to ask why. Why do they have so many candidates that are dropping like flies? Now, if you tell me you got 1 or 2 of them, that's fine. But if you have a whole host of them, that tells me you have a structural foundation problem within the role and the position and the leadership of the organization you're going to go to work for. Now, 2 of the original semifinalists for the Dallas city manager's role are no longer in the running for that position. Now, city leaders also reached out this week to Carl Simpson, a former Dallas official and current city manager of Jackson, California, to interview. But Simpson told the Dallas Morning News, he was tapped too late in the process. Now, if you're going to go after a guy who says you're hitting me too late in the process, why aren't you planning that out? You've lost 2 people. You reach out to a third, and he says thanks, but no thanks. Now, meanwhile, semifinalist Zach Williams is executive assistant and chief operating officer for DeKalb County in Georgia, confirmed to the Dallas Morning News he was not in the running when reached by phone early this morning. Now, an affiliate of WFAA first reported that Mark Washington, city manager of Grand Rapids, also withdrew his application. Sounds to me like you got a lot of folks. You got an opening in the Dallas city manager position, and you got a lot of folks, and you can't quite find the right applicants. Now, I know this city's a pretty daggone good city to be in. I know it's growing. It's got a great tax structure. It's got a lot of great things going on in this region, including a technology hub that's possibly coming. And you have some significant business leaders in our community. And I know this has to pay a pretty good chunk of change. So why are you losing your people? I don't know the answer to that, but it makes me want to go back to leadership. I got to ask you the question. Why do you think so many people dropping like flies for the Dallas city manager role? What do you know? What do you think? What's your opinion? I want to hear it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. Coming up in 2 minutes is the bottom of the hour news with Sean Allen with an update on the budget process out of D.C. and what the Senate's doing. On the other side of that, I want to finish the story about the Dallas City Council and the Dallas managerial position, city manager. It's something you got to keep an eye on because it's very telling of what else is going on across city government. My name is Jeff. It's West Side Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. When you look across the country and you look at really great, vibrant, healthy cities, when you look at communities that thrive, when you look at, you know what I'm talking about, when you travel, there's certain places that just stick out to you. They just feel right, feel good. They're clean. People are happy. Great neighborhoods, supportive of law enforcement, a good business community, great restaurants, just a good place to be. There are places like that across country, and then there are dumps. When you think of dumps, I think about cities like St. Louis, Baltimore, where you have major strife. Detroit at one time was one of those, where it was just really in decline. And when cities go in decline, some of the things that drive it tend to be seediness. Like, if you listen to me long enough, you've heard me talk about the prostitution ring going on in and around the Harry Hines area. There was a prostitution ring sting that took place about a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago, December 14th, I think it was, up in Plano. Horrible schools and mismanagement in schools. Those are the things that really start the decay of a city. But the other things that make that pronounced and speed that up is bad leadership. Leadership makes a difference. Leadership makes a difference in companies. It makes a difference in sports franchises. It makes a a very big difference in cities, communities, and in the country. So I open up the Dallas Morning News today. I see a story that said, who will lead the city of Dallas? 3 city manager candidates withdraw from the running. And it goes on talking about the people that withdraw and the people that don't want to interview, the people that probably okay candidates. Zach Williams, Executive Assistant and Chief Operations Officer for the DeKalb County in Georgia, confirmed to the Dallas News that he was not in the running when he was reached by phone this morning. So Dallas News is on the story. WFAA is also. FAA first reported Mark Washington, city manager of Grand Rapids, Michigan, also withdrew his application from being considered as city manager for the city of Dallas. Now, the remaining candidates are interim city manager Kimberly Beiser Tolbert and William Johnson, an assistant city manager in Fort Worth. A new candidate, Sacramento Assistant City Manager Mario Lara, also was added to the mix. That's according to 2 City Hall officials. Now, the change follows, and the news of what I'm talking about, of all the candidates dropping like flies, that happens. Those changes follow a week of infighting between city council members over the number of semifinalists and the time it's taking to name a finalist. Several council members said they expected to see at least one or more of the names when the semifinalists were named in November. So you've got a lack of leadership here. I've been a boss. I've been an employer. They're doing it all wrong. Art Davis, a representative of the Baker Tilly organization, told council members in a December 12th meeting that several contenders also dropped out due to the November 5th election. And that's because voters approved propositions that waive governmental immunity and direct 50% of new revenue year over year to police and fire pension system and other public safety initiatives. Those are key high-value targets, high-value initiatives that the city has to grapple with. One of the propositions voted on November 5th also mandates that the city hire 900 more cops to remain at 4,000 public safety officials in the workforce. Now, days after the election, top credit rating firm Moody's signaled a potential impact on the city of Dallas, the ability to borrow and sustain debt following the passage of the propositions. Now, the credit rating firm of Moody's downgraded the Dallas city debt outlook from stable to negative because of concerns about how diverting revenue can limit the city's flexibility to pay for the other expenses. So we have a challenge in the city of Dallas, and that is the governmental immunity issue. Secondly is directing 50% of any new revenue year over year to police and fire pension systems and to staff up by 900 in the Dallas Police Department. Now, I got to tell you, that's not going to be easy. 900 people. That's going to be hard. In an environment today where we have a drain on police forces and law enforcement, where we've just come out of an era of a couple of years of anti-cop rhetoric. And, oh, by the way, you got to add to that, big city like Dallas, they're going to want DEI. They're going to say a certain percentage of our population is black or Hispanic. They're going to want that to be representative of the candidates. So DEI gets in the way of things. And my attitude, my recommendation, and my opinion is simple. Make it merit-based. I don't care if they hire all black police officers. That's okay with me if they're the best candidates. I don't care if they hire all Hispanics. That's okay by me. I don't care if they hire all women. That's okay by me. If they are your best candidates and it's merit-based, then that's good. But again, city manager candidates have withdrawn from Dallas city managers' positions, their application, withdrawn their application. And it tells me there's a problem on council. That's what I'm reading into this. What do you know? What do you hear? What do you think? Why is it all of a sudden Dallas is struggling to find a city manager? Why are all these candidates dropping? I want to hear your perspective at 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up on Facebook and X at Westside Jeff. But I know this, when you have a major metropolitan area like Dallas that's cash rich, that has the investment and the opportunity that we have in the city, in this community, and you have all the assets that we have, and the great place, when you have everything going for you, and so many people withdraw their application, my read into it is leadership. Direction and leadership is wrong. Now, City Council member Kara Mendelson, a member of the ad hoc committee, said she was surprised at the December 12th meeting that semifinalists did not include a Hispanic candidate, seeing as the community is one of the largest ethnic groups in the region. Back to the DEI. So a city council member says, geez, I'm really surprised we don't have any Hispanic candidates. We got to go find them. No. How about you find the best one? How about you find the best one who wants the position, who can do the position, and merit-based? And if they're all Hispanic, yippee-ki-yay, as John McClain said. And if none of them are, that's okay too. Now, the committee then announced a meeting for December 16th at 1 p.m. to revise the list of semifinalists. The next day, however, 3 council members, Paula Blackman, Janie Schultz, and Gay Donnell Willis, sent a memo to call for another meeting the same day at 9 a.m. The 3 council members said they wanted to speed up the search for a city manager. It just sounds to me like there's some infighting going on in city council. There's a leadership vacuum. And they're more concerned about the wrong things rather than the right things. I just know this. Our city and our community deserves better, and we deserve merit-based leadership. That's my opinion. Jeff is the name, Westside Jeff. How about we get back to hiring people based off of merit? How about we hire people that actually want the position? How about we hire people who are capable of fulfilling the position as opposed to people that are check a box? Because when you just go with checking a box, you have bad results. All I know is when I see as many stories I've seen across multiple publications about several candidates dropping out of the position for city manager, which is a desirable, high-value, target-type position that pays well. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. I want to hear your perspective on what that may be. The name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, in for Chris Krok. The number's 800-288-9227. Got to hit break, 3.5 minutes long. On the other side of it, I want to continue a conversation about that and immigration. Major Census Bureau revisions just increased the impact in our state. My question is, where was that transparency a few months ago? We'll talk about that in about 3.5 minutes. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, in for Chris Krok. 800-288-9227 is my number. You can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. Westside Jeff in for News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. House Republicans, 34 to be exact, voted against the government funding bill to avert a shutdown just a short time ago. Several from Texas. So several Republicans said no to the continuing resolution, including Representative Michael Cloud here in Texas, as well as Chip Roy down from San Antonio area, Tony Gonzalez, Lance Gooden, Wesley Hunt. These are House members who voted no on the continuing resolution. Chip Roy, Keith Self, and Beth Van Dyne. I think it's Dyne. I think is her name. I may be getting that wrong. 34 Republican House members who voted against the continuing resolution to keep the government funded just hours before the midnight deadline. And why? Well, Trump's going to tell you it's because they are rhinos. But they'll tell you what's behind it is that they are spending hawks. These are folks that don't want to increase the debt. I've seen Chip Roy talk a couple times, and he has said many times that he has vowed to govern and to manage a checkbook like it was his own. It's a promise to his kids. I'm okay with that. I say I want the balanced budget. You're not going to do it overnight, but I want to move towards that direction. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok. The U.S. Census Bureau yesterday. This is significant news. Major U.S. Census Bureau revisions increase immigrant impact. And the biggest gains in immigrant impact are southern states. I want to ask you, what state in this country do you think saw the biggest net gain of immigrants in this country? Now, the Bureau's numbers, I'll tell you that in about 4 minutes. The Bureau's numbers are the latest data point for federal agencies, economists, and demographers who are trying to measure how newcomers are boosting the population and adding to the nation's workforce. Now, 2 decades before the pandemic, immigration or immigrants consistently accounted for less than half of U.S. population growth. So when you look at the growth in this country, immigrants accounted for less than half of that. Well, the Census Bureau recently just revised the numbers and came out with those numbers yesterday. And as the story goes, immigrants are having a huge impact on the nation's population. Again, they revised those numbers. New immigrants into the U.S. accounted for 84% of U.S. growth in the year ending June 30th. They look at the year, not a calendar year. They look at July 1 to June 30th. Prior to the pandemic, that growth, what was the number I just said, accounted for a few percentage points, I think is the number. I don't have it right in front of me. But in this year, it was 84%. So I asked you a minute ago, what state is the largest net growth of immigrants in the country? And what state do you think is number 2? Well, the Census Bureau estimates that include major revisions to earlier estimates that are intended to better capture a surge in immigration. The Bureau estimates about 2.7 million net arrivals for most recent year. The agency now estimates U.S. grew by about 8.5 million immigrants over the past 4 years, with immigrants accounting for the vast majority of that. Much of this growth in the number 1 state comes down to Texas. Shouldn't surprise you. 563,000 net growth in immigrants in that fiscal year. July 1 of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. The number 2 state, Florida. The South accounted for 54% of last year's growth. Not a surprise to you and I. My question is this. Where was this transparency the last 3.5 years? Where was the Biden administration? When he ran for office, he said he would be the most transparent president in history. Obviously, he lied to us because he hasn't been. Nothing about Joe Biden's been transparent. Nothing. So the Census Bureau revises the numbers, and I find it interesting. They release that data 4 weeks after an election. Good news is they released it. The bad news is it came 4 weeks after an election. The other good news, it didn't impact the election. But it's full transparency now, and I appreciate the transparency. Got to hit top of the hour news. On the other side of it, I want to talk about Christmas shopping. You're probably out Christmas shopping tonight or tomorrow. What are the chances that you buy a gift for somebody that is an unwanted gift? How many people do you think will receive an unwanted gift at Christmas? And how much does that average? I'll tell you what that looks like. After the top of the hour news, that's in 2 minutes with Sean Allen in a newsroom. On the other side of that, unwanted gifts. You'll probably get one. And I'll tell you the average value. And what do you do with it? We'll talk about that in about 7 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.